Hello, this is Wai with the FPV Podcast, where we talk about the FPV community and everything we do with our radio-controlled machines. Before we get into the show, I just want to very quickly touch upon our Patreon giveaway. This is a monthly giveaway that we're going to be doing for our Patreon supporters. So we're going to be giving away a lot of great products. The first month, January, we're going to be giving away a GoPro and a couple of other things. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and being entered into the giveaway, please go over to fpvpodcast.com. That's fpvpodcast.com. Thank you so much for supporting the FPV podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's FPV podcast. This week, following the Christmas trend, I guess, we're going to be talking a little bit about family, about hobbies, about work-life balance. This is going to be an interesting one. We actually have a couple that are into FPV and into racing. So this is going to be a fun one for the, Christmas season, holiday season, family season, whatever you like to call it. Before we start though, Elvan, what do you got to say this time?
I got to say, hope everybody's having a great time of the year. If you're able to, if it's cold, shut up. At least you can fly. It's raining here, damn it. Anyway, peace, love, happiness, everyone around the world. That's what I want. That's what I want for New Year's.
I just want to say before I introduce our guest is that I was being all positive, and the first thing Elvan does is curse on the podcast during Christmas. Okay. Casey Victory, can you please introduce yourself?
Well, hi, I'm Casey.
Anything else to say? Come on. Surely.
Well, I like to fly my quad. My FPV name is Gorgo.
Gorgo. There we go. We're going to ask you how you came up with that name because I want to know. What about you, Jeff? Jeff Victory, what do you got to say?
My name is Jeff, also known as Quad Logic. Obviously, we all love flying quads here. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about and sharing the love of the hobby.
That's right. As you can tell, they are a couple. They both have the same last names. And Elvan, he's seen a lot of breakups in FPV lately because a lot of people have a lot of dedication towards the sport, which sometimes doesn't work well for your job balance, your life balance, and your relationship balance. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but let's go ahead and get their backgrounds before we get into, family ties and stuff or whatever you would like to call it. So, Victory or the Victory family, how did you get into FPV?
I guess I could start this one off. Well, I've been into RC since I was a kid, probably around 10 or so. And, back then it was just fixed wing airplanes. I actually started with cars, nitro and whatnot, and had a lot of fun with that. Got into fixed wing, did acro, or like a 3D flight and whatnot, and had a lot of fun with that. But my uncle got me into into RC. And we used to sit around and just think, well, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? And one of our dreams was to put a camera in an airplane, put on a set of VR goggles, which didn't actually exist at the time. And we're like, and fly it as if we're sitting inside of it. And that was just kind of always our ultimate RC dream. And at some point, I sort of got out of RC altogether, right around the time I started college. I didn't have really the money or the time for it, and said, well, I'll go off, just leave that be for a while. And so I did that. And one day I'm seeing this, I'm looking on YouTube and I see this video that all of us have seen of people, I think in the UK, over racing through the woods with, with the lights on their quads. And you're like, oh my God, it's like Star Wars. And I didn't understand what was going on at first. I was really confused. Like, what is this? Then I realized that they're flying with goggles and I think, oh my God, it's finally here. So, and it was just like this huge eureka moment, like, holy crap. And that's like back when blackouts were still the thing and, using Simon K. ESCs and all that. And actually, I, at the time, was still not able to get into it. It was still beyond what I could really afford to do. And I thought, well, but it's there. I know it's there. I'll get to it at some point. And the next thing I know, fast forward a year or so, my uncle's talking about this company DJI and these drones they have and this amazing technology, and so we get a Phantom 2 and we crash it pretty quick, and
and then that kind of happened on its own too, kind of.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there was an error with the way back then DJI was trying to figure it out along with the rest of us, and the way the go home procedure worked. I couldn't override it and it went to a tree. I mean, so we thought, the next logical thing to do is to ship it back to DJI and get an Inspire 1. So while the Phantom was off getting repaired, we bought an Inspire and we did our diligence to learn the app and sat there and learned how to, do everything. And one of the first things I flew after over 6 years of not flying RC was an Inspire 1. So I was a little bit nervous.
Expensive machine.
Oh yeah. It went well, and we wanted to do like everybody starting out with drones. I'm going to do videography and all this stuff. So we went down this path of chasing that and going through different ideas and what we wanted to do. And somehow that eventually evolved into having the hobby shop that we have now. And before we got to that point, though, I'm learning how to fly all these DJI drones. Which I'll have self-level and all these things. And I think, well, I've always been the kind of trickster acro kind of guy. I'm really ADD and like to keep moving and playing and spinning. And so I started playing with little stuff like a Nano QX. And then I found Benedict Hack and his micromotor warehouse and all the little amazing things that he has there, and started beefing up my Nano and moved into some other bond and fly stuff, and eventually thought, well, I'm going to build my own quad, and just got really obsessed at that point and made it a point to fly every single day. Whenever. And then the rest is kind of history. I mean, it's just been an obsession and turned into sort of a career in a way. And then here we are. It's been a fun ride. So
definitely.
Kind of how I found FPV.
So Casey, how did you transition through basically his life story?
Well, when I first met him, I hung out with him a lot in his uncle's hangar that him and his uncle would build their RC planes in. And we would just listen to music, and he would be building his planes. He didn't really fly them much. It was just a whole lot of building and hanging out. And then we went to college, and that kind of stopped because, like you said, we really couldn't afford to be in the hobby. It's really hard to be a student and to be able to have cash flow like that.
Right.
So it kind of definitely stopped for a long time. I had never done anything RC before we had gotten into the Phantom and the Inspire. I wanted to start flying a couple of years ago because I was going to California for a month to do hiking, and I wanted to do what everyone does with the new Phantoms that were kind of new then, get amazing quality footage and see the trails from the skies. And I learned how to fly it, and it was pretty. I don't want to say that I was surprised at how not complicated it was to fly the Phantom. Like Jeff had said, there's so many things in place for it to be kind of simple and user friendly. So that inspired me to start learning how to fly other quadcopters. So then he gave me an Inductrix for my birthday. Wow. Jeff did. So then we started chasing our pets around the house with the Inductrix.
Scaring your pets.
Pets are like, damn, that's both of them.
Yep.
And then I had a lot of fun with the Inductrix. And then for my next birthday, he gave me a QAV, which is what I currently fly now. And I do a little racing with it, but it was set up for freestyle. So when I get a chance, I don't fly as much as Jeff, but when we like to go out and spend time together and get some flying in.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
I think that's so important, that you guys are doing that together, and that it's I can see what Jeff is with his reason to fly, but is your reason to fly? I mean, not now when you go out to fly. What's the biggest joy that you get when you fly, Casey?
I love being able to see the earth from the sky.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing. Like, I love hiking and being out in nature and just kind of escaping things around me. And you can do that in a quad. You can get up very high and see the landscape that you won't be able to see unless you're a bird or a quad. So.
Right. Or you can get down low, you know, and
or
see,
you can.
and see things from a little lower.
I'm the proximity guy between the two of us.
Yeah.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
So, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm the one that likes the proximity. You know, I'm like all of us watch YouTube videos, and I'm the one getting down around trees and hitting the gaps and just being playful in that way. So it's just more of my groove.
Sounds like a family freestyle thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Yep.
So when you were out in California, Casey, were you able to bring the Phantom and get some cool hiking videos, photos, whatnot?
Yeah, I did. And it was definitely a learning experience. For one, I wanted to know how I was going to be able to get on a plane with all of the equipment. And that's very simple, especially once you can go online and read the regulations for that. Mm-hmm. The DJI Phantom fits really nice in its case, and all of that's really simple. There were several parks out there that are state parks, and you're not allowed to fly in those parks out there. So it was difficult finding trails that weren't in that category or within airports. So being able to fly within the regulations in that part of California that I was in was a little difficult, but I was able to do it a few times. And Jeff met me for a week out there, and he was able to get some better footage that I was a little more nervous about flying the Phantom with. That was fun too. So I went on a trail and I took the Phantom by myself, and I got out to this place I wanted to get footage and was really nervous and didn't fly that day. And then when he came out there, I was like, hey, let's go back to this place because I really want to get this footage.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, you know how people say drones sound like a swarm of bees?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm flying the Phantom at one point. We're at the bottom of this little waterfall and like the bottom of this ravine. And we're so surrounded by mountains that we couldn't even get a GPS signal. So I'm flying this thing in ADI mode, trying to fly up to get, a shot of the waterfall on the step and all that. And went high enough up that I got GPS and could just look around the mountain slopes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then on the way down, we started noticing something like something around the Phantom, and we weren't sure what it was. And it got low enough, and it was a swarm of bees, literally just flying around it. And there were bee guts on the props and everything. And they were really interested in that Phantom.
They were really pissed.
They thought it was like some sort of enemy or something with that buzzing. It's like, we got to go and fight this thing. This big white thing.
Like their bee god has come back or something.
Right.
So
they're
traitor.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's one particular trail that I got at with a friend, and we had underestimated how long it was. So we'd been hiking for a couple of hours. And of course, I had the Phantom on my back, ready to be done. So we get it up in the air to see exactly how much further we had left. Unfortunately, we were only halfway through.
I have a very similar story. So I had the bright idea when I first got the Phantom to bring it all the way up the Appalachian Mountains, 6,000 feet up. It's about a 14-hour hike straight up a mountain.
Yep.
The first half an hour, you're like, this is a great idea. About 4 hours later, it's like, okay, this might not be a great idea. After about 12 hours, you're like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever had in my life to try to get a Phantom 6,000 feet into the air. I do have the video. It's out there, but I will never do it again. Because you don't realize. Yeah, what?
Got the video to prove it.
You don't realize how heavy that stuff is until you have it on your back for 12 hours. And it's like, it's not as light as I thought it would be.
Right.
But
yeah, we do have ours in this really neat little backpack that helps a lot, but still, yeah,
it's the batteries, okay? Just don't bring a lot of batteries because they're heavy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's great that you guys are actually together and, you're doing stuff together. So talk to me about the store that you eventually brought because you guys, for anybody who doesn't know, Vivid Aerial sponsored the first Mega Drone, one of the first companies to really step up and just be there within the region. And you guys do some pretty cool things. Out on Facebook, you post some really nice pictures. You look like you have a great hobby shop, and looks like there's a lot of stuff in there. So tell me, how you got, the idea of, one, getting a store, and then how's the progress been?
Well, first of all, we didn't actually buy the store. I helped. It was I was in with my aunt and uncle, so it's sort of a family venture there. And it was the three of us that initially brainstormed, came up with the ideas, and thought, we're gonna go this route with it. I don't know. We just had the idea that at first we wanted to do like online retail. Well, that was really not the first idea, but it was one of the things that evolved us into where we are. And there was so much going on at the time. I don't honestly remember how that evolved from that to doing a brick and mortar, other than the fact that the old hobby shop that we used to go to back when we did, fixed wing, was up for sale. Mm-hmm. My uncle's like, hey, Wayne's selling the place. And I'm like, okay, is that really what we want to do? And that evolved into, we're going to buy it. And it was kind of your old traditional, like our joke there for a while was, as we were remodeling and stuff, we said, this ain't your grandpa's hobby shop. Mm-hmm. So because it kind of had that old fashioned feel to it. And like just the whole inside was like drab and the old style shelving and stuff. And we came in and really it was just all fixed wing stuff. Mm-hmm. We came there and we shut down the store for almost 2 months and remodeled the entire inside, painted all the walls bright, vivid colors, and did some cool stuff with display walls and shelving, and brought we got this one big wall that's nothing but DJI, and it's a really nice big display of all their impressive equipment, and brought in our FPV and all that stuff, and like you said, you said, from what you see online, it looks like a neat place. It really is. It's a neat place. It's exciting. We have people walk in every day and just go, oh my God, this is the coolest hobby shop I've ever seen. And that's really cool because that's what we wanted. We wanted to be a place that people, were just like, wow, this is cool. I want to be here. So,
or I want to be involved in it too.
Yeah. And be involved. We've gotten heavy. Like initially we never intended on doing cars at all. Mm-hmm. There's a strong market for that in our area. Mm-hmm. And we've got a technician there that's just, he is superb in cars and he knows his stuff. And we're getting a drift track in the back section of the shop. And we've got a tiny whoop course in the shop that's basically just hoops strung up in the ceiling. Most of them are LED lit. And we're going to extend the whoop track over the drift track and all that stuff. And, just have nights where guys come over and, along with the drift racing, have tiny whoop races and things like that.
One of the important things about getting the shop started was that you can't go online and actually experience what it's like to do these things for yourself. Right. Where you can walk into the store and they want to put goggles on you. Hey, watch this. Oh, yeah. Look how much fun this is. Like, don't you want to experience what it's like? And almost everyone's like, oh yeah, I can't believe something like this exists. This is awesome.
You mean I got to give up drinking for a weekend?
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good point too. One of the things you don't get online, we pride ourselves in a few things like customer service, obviously, but using our expertise, our knowledge, the things we've gained through our own passion in the hobby to help other people get started, because there's quite a learning curve in this, especially if, may heaven help you if you've never soldered before. It's like there's a lot you gotta jump into and combine skills together to make this all work. Right. And, people come in our doors and they go, what's FPV? And we've got like 4 pair of demo goggles, and I grab one and I say, here. And I grab my favorite freestyle frame and we head out the door. And I blow people's minds every day, and it's awesome. And I'm not saying that because of my pilot skills. It's just experiencing that FPV. Right. It's just, the first time, it's amazing. Right. Especially if someone that knows what they're doing is giving you a ride, it's like, right. Wow, this is just incredible. You give them
fly that low to the floor,
Right. Or you give them one that always gets people is I'll just do a punch out and just drop it inverted and just chop the throttle and just let it fall. And it gets them every time.
You can't do that with a DJI drone. That's why it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't work in anything else except acro.
You stop the motor and you ain't spinning them no more.
Yeah.
So Casey, what has your experience been owning the store and like people coming in and also, you know, interacting with them?
I spend little time at the store because I have another job that I have to work full time, and I have other projects going on as well. But when I do come in, it's like you walk into a family shop. There's people there who I've met because they come in as customers that are there almost every time I end up going there, just because it's a really great spot to hang out and to be. You know, they have questions, they get them answered, and then they hang out and wait to see who the next person's going to walk in to want to, you know, have fun in the store. I always take my Inductrix with me and fly the Tiny Wolf course every time I go in there. And then we have a couple of nieces as well that love being at the shop. And so it's fun. It's fun to go there and to have that time with my family and with the friends that I've made that are becoming family, because we all like to have fun with RC.
So for you, it's kind of like a place to hang out after your work day, and also to just enjoy, like, basically the FPV community friends. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's where my husband is. So, you know, sometimes I'll bring him lunch or dinner, but, you know, it's mostly to, you know, go in and just kind of wind down and have fun with my friends.
Okay, so answer honestly, how many times did you actually have to drag him out of the shop so that you can close the shop?
I make a joke with him sometimes. I'm like, are we going to stop by the store? Because then I'll have to add a couple of hours to my it's going to take us a while. And especially if the store is open, there's just dropping in to grab something, because you know, people are like, hey, Jeff, I have a question. Hey, Jeff, can you help me with this too? Yeah. And hey, Jeff, what about that quad that we were talking about last week? Oh, it's every time we go in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the place will suck you in, and you're there for hours, and like, holy crap, where'd the time go? So
it's always a black hole of time, right? You go
secrets out.
Any hobby shop.
That right there, by the way.
It's 9:30
again. Yeah. We never close on time.
See, that right there is the hallmark of a good hobby shop, is when people want to go there to hang out, because it's a fun atmosphere. You know, if you go to a hobby shop where it's just all business, it's the wrong hobby shop. It's not the right hobby shop for the area. It's the ones that are always fun. It's the ones that you come in and you feel like you're part of family, or at least close friends. You know, those are the best hobby shops, and you should always support those, because they're kind of rare, to be honest with you. They're, you know, if you have them, you want to keep them.
Right.
So, just really quickly, where's your hobby shop and what is it called? Well, we already know what it's called, but just say it again.
Vivid Aerial, and we are actually just a little north of Nashville, in a little area called Whites Creek, 8 miles north of downtown. And
this is in Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah, everyone knows where Nashville is. Isn't that like one of the most hip cities ever now? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is.
No, I don't know, man. I'd say that sarcastically, because we both grew up here, and we're like, yeah, Nashville, whatever. And now apparently anywhere we go and say we're from Nashville, it seems to be like everyone's like, oh, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah. I think most people know where Nashville is. Yeah.
I know there's just a lot of people moving here. It seems to be like kind of hip town these days. So it's fun.
Great for business.
Oh yeah, great for business.
Great for business.
Well, hopefully you are successful in your Vivid Aerial store, because hobby shops generally have a hard time because online sales kind of dominate a lot of things. So hopefully, well, actually, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how's the online sales, and how's that kind of, you know, affecting your brick and mortar store?
It is tough. You know, there's a lot that goes into that, especially with this hobby. You know, you've got the online, the other online places that in a lot of ways can sell cheaper than we can. We do our best to keep our prices as close to online prices as we can. You know, margins are a difficult thing to balance. And so it is challenging, but that's really where we do our best to really step up that personal experience. And, you know, when someone buys a flight controller from us, it's not just like, oh, here's your flight controller, have a good day. It's like, well, I can answer questions for you, and I can even flash it for you to the newest version of Betaflight or whatever. And, you know, kind of get you on your way to being set up. And if you need help, come in and I'll answer more questions. And we have tech service too. You can pay for tech time and to actually do things. And like, if you're just like, I'm tired of fooling with it, I want you to do it, then they'll hand it over to me. And
that is an option today. You know what I mean? That like, I remember back in the day when I was doing that for the local guys around here, it's like, it was such a pain in the ass, you know, like we would order 2 or 3 flight controllers, 2 or 3 sets of speed controllers, you know, and, you know, I might build the ship and we get to this one point and you go to plug something in and then you start all over, you know, and you just had to tell people these things that they could happen. It could happen. And you just move on.
Yeah, and that's like, you know, and that reminds you, talk about your local guys, and, you know, something I've seen doing this for going on 2 years now, well, a year and a half-ish, but is I've watched a lot of pilots come in knowing almost nothing, and I've helped them with their first build and coached them through different things, and now, you know, they know how to solder, they know how to do their own builds, and now they're coming to me every now and then. I don't see them as much, but they come to me less often with much more difficult problems, things that they've not worked up to learning how to deal with yet. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. I like those. It's more of a challenge for me as a tech and troubleshooting and all that. But it's fun and it's rewarding to do that, to teach people and share knowledge so that they can go out and have a good time themselves.
Right.
And that's what Amazon can't do for you, or Banggood.
I was just talking to somebody about that. You know, we were talking about how I was telling them, you know, we talked to the guys at Heli Nation, you know, and once, and Patrick was talking about how he's undercut. You know, I mean, how he's losing. He kind of had to do it, but he's losing money doing it. You know what I mean? There's a percentage that he's losing in that process. And that's got to be hard for any local hobby shop. I mean, we have a few here in Portland, and, you know, they're running ragged. Some of them, you know, there's the Hobby Town. Like, I'll just say this. Hobby Town is like, because it's that franchise, they have a more consistent following, right? You know, that's what we have here. But we also have, you know, a different hobby shop, more similar to what you have, and they get a different kind of customer. You know what I mean? So like the guys at Hobby Town get this new customer that doesn't have any clue, blah 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 blah. Where this hobby shop, you go over there and all the customers are more knowledgeable. They're flying bigger, driving bigger stuff, better stuff. You know, it's more of a higher end clientele, I would say, because of the personal thing. And I'm sure that's what it is where you're at too. It's because you have people in there that are driving to get somebody in there, and not just filling the normal void of, oh, you want this part? Here you go. And, you know, you want that part? Here you go. We got that on the shelf. How do you put that in? I don't know. You got to go look in the manual. You know, you know. So when you have like what you have, you can pull in more customers because they feel at home, like you were saying earlier.
Right. Whereas I guess not to belittle or anything, but I would say Hobbytown is more like kind of the Walmart in a sense. Like it's that formula, you know, whereas we have more of that personal touch. I mean, we have a Hobbytown here in Nashville, or it's outside of Nashville just a little, but and everybody, or not every, a lot of people come to us and say, man, I went over to Hobbytown. They didn't know anything about drones. They're like, I could sell you this thing, but you know, as far as like switchable VTX, what's that? So, you know, like,
what's F-band?
right, exactly. So they, you know, so it's definitely a different thing. So, it's a good thing. We love it. And, you know, we have our as far as clients go, you mentioned being higher end, and that's another thing we struggle with is, when you're carrying these products, you got to carry things that you believe in and are quality things, but then things need to be affordable as well. So that's another thing you balance, and as well as the customers. Like, a lot of our people, we've seen customers come and go, and I've seen people buy from us for a little while, and then they start they start seeing Banggood and, seeing some of the things they can get, and then kind of, come back and forth on that. And I understand, like everybody's got to deal with the financial aspect of it in their own way and what they can afford and all that. But then we've got our diehard people that are like, hey, it's a local business. This is a great place. I want to support you guys no matter what. So, and we appreciate all of our customers, and it takes all of them to make it all work right.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
You can't annex anybody, even if they buy online, right? It's one of those things
not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. It's just I notice things as I deal with people and trends, and I try to use that to really just make my service better if I can.
Right. Because the service is what's going to keep a customer coming back. It's having the knowledge, having the place, the know-how, or the location for others to gather. Like you said, you guys have the tiny whoop track inside the ceiling. You know what I mean? There's guys that like I would be at your shop. You know what I mean? Right. That would be like I would like right now. I would be at your shop like while you're cleaning up. Well,
that's what we're doing. New Year's Eve, we're having kind of a somewhat private little FPV whoop party for kind of the kind of nuclear freestyle clique in town, and we're all going to get together and have a good time and fly whoops around the shop. So
that is pretty cool. I like that.
I got a good question for you, Casey. Are you finding that the door is opening up more for the hobby as an aspect of females? I mean, it's we all understand this is kind of like that one-way road down the way. It's just guys most of the time. But I'm always interested in what's because I'm a dad of 4 girls, and I got a granddaughter and stuff, and is that door opening up for girls too? I mean, are you seeing more females coming into the shop, or do they tend to want to ask you more questions?
Yeah, well, definitely. Like you had mentioned earlier, women tend to relate to women. So when you find that there is one in a room full of guys, you kind of gravitate towards them and see what their story is. Why are you here? Are you interested in that? Just like me. What I'm finding is there's really 2 different types of girls that are into this hobby, and it's really great however you get into it. But there are the women quite like me who would not have gotten into it necessarily had I not really wanted to spend time with Jeff, or if it wasn't something that he was really into, that the family was really into. But I still have a whole lot of fun doing it, and I really love it and enjoy it. But then there are the women who just truly love building things. They love solving problems and flying, just like most of the guys do. So what I'm finding is that more of those, I'm meeting more women who are into it because they truly love it. They truly want to build their own stuff. They want to do it all on their own, learn and fly. And it's interesting. When I was in college, I worked for a program that went to middle and high schools to encourage women or encourage girls then to seek out higher degree jobs that were into science and engineering and in math, because there is a really small percentage of people who are going into those fields that are women, but it's not necessarily because we're not as smart as guys or that we can't have fun with it. Mostly it's because of stigma that was put on us for a long time, and that's being lifted. And what I found is that I've been nothing but accepted and, if anything, encouraged more because I am kind of unique when when you walk into a hobby shop and it's a bunch of guys flying, and you want to fly
that's
too.
How I feel. That's how I feel. Kind of unique.
It's always encouraging. Like I always, before I start flying, I kind of feel like, oh, am I embarrassed? Like, am I going to suck at this? And then I always find that my experience is positive and fun and great. So I think that having that atmosphere that is welcoming helps encourage girls and women who might not do it because they're afraid of maybe, I'll get made fun of or I'm just not good enough. That's not my experience at all. And I think that that's helping get more women involved.
Hey, I can contest, being a dad, and having girls and boys under my house, my girl's a pretty badass at table tennis. I mean, like, well, I got one that when she was 14, she went up against one of the national teams, the leader of the national team, and she smoked her so bad the girl started crying. I was like, wow, it was like, yeah, that's mine, but girls. I mean, to me, it's like you never know. You know what I mean? You never know who's the one. You know what I mean in the household. Like I got my 16-year-old daughter. She likes to fly. She flies helicopters. That's what she does. She likes to fly helicopters. She don't like flying multirotors. She don't like planes. That's all she does. She has an E-Flight MX little helicopter. It's a fly-barless little helicopter, and it runs the same batteries as a Tiny Whoop, Right. And she flies that all over the house, and it's like there's days when we've come home and she's got, 10 or 15 batteries in the middle of the floor and she's just flying around the living room, and like she's not the one that I thought was the one, you know what I mean? That would get involved in that. Like she was the one that, I was like taught her, we were paper airplanes, doing paper airplanes together, like that's normally how I do it, right? I take you out to the field and we'll try to throw some paper airplanes and see if you understand flight, you know what I mean? How fast you grasp on the flight, because you understand how to toss a plane depending on the angle, get you your distance, get you your glide slope, all of that. So I'm just trying to see if math is just falling into place, right? So so she's not that one, but like my boy, like he doesn't even want to fly drones, but he does. Like he'll put on the goggles and then he'll chase me around the house, and he'll follow the dog around the house, into the kitchen, and in the bathroom, in the bedroom and all that. And so what I'm saying is you never know who's the one in the house. And if you're a dad out there, make sure you open the door for your girls just like you would open the door for your boys. That's the bottom line for me is don't forget. I mean, it's always open to all of us. Like some of the best drivers in the world are females, some of the best drivers in the world. And some of the best shooters in the world are females. I know my mom is a marksman. She can do some stuff, make some dudes get a little upset. And like she's 60 years old. Dude, she got a 1-inch group. Shut up. She knows what she's doing. She's done it time after time after time. So, right. But what I'm saying is, I always want people to understand that this hobby is open to us all, and don't overlook, and for you guys out there that are running around, make sure you always stay open to those female pilots out there, because you never know. You just never know. You don't know who you stumble on, the door. You can empower someone with just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of your time and open up a world for someone. because some of the greatest scientists in this world was females, and they were just fed just enough to where they were able to grasp and multiply with all the different aspects of the world.
Well, and I think it doesn't matter how you get into the hobby as long as you're having fun with it.
Yes, yes. Don't force nobody to do anything. I mean, that's just bad. But it's give people an opportunity. That's what I always, I let the little kids in the neighborhood. I take them for a ride. Because I don't know who it is. Whether it's a boy or a girl. Like, I'm more excited about girls because the dudes are all like, I know, I can fly. Yeah. Hey, mister, let me fly it, The girls are like, oh, my God, what is that? And then we put the goggles and they're like, oh, wow, you can fly above the building? You can fly above the trees? This is so cool, And that is what I like, the impression I like to give.
There you go. There's the I don't know, the serum. There's the religious philosophy of Elvin Wilson II, I guess. Okay, so that's a good segue into kind of what we were going to talk about for this podcast. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of it. During Megadrone 2.0, we noticed that a lot of guys that we've been following or we've been friends with have converted into single status on Facebook. And FPV had a prominent role in that. And it's one of those things where you got to be careful, right? If a hobby dominates your life a little too much, you start letting other things slack off, like work, like relationships, all the other important things. Actually, probably more important things than, flying toys all around just because you enjoy doing it. So that's where Elvin came up with the brainchild of, talking to you two, because obviously you two have figured out the math to make it all work and not kill each other over a hobby. So like, okay, I'll start with Casey. So how do you make it work? It's like, for a fact that if he comes within a mile of that store, you're going to lose him for 3 hours. How do you manage, making sure that, everything still gets taken care of?
Well, I think the cliche thing to say is compromise. But I mean,
that's true.
I mean, when we first got into this hobby, it wasn't easy because it was new for us. Jeff, when he gets into something, he goes for it full bore with his whole heart. So, it was exciting and new, and he was learning all this new technology because he wanted to help people learn and he wanted to learn as well. And so it was like, it was kind of like he was going into this hole that was FPV, like you had said. And a lot of things were kind of slacking. Some of the time that we would spend together wasn't there because, he wanted to fly. And I really wanted to help support him with that. I didn't want to tell him he couldn't go out and fly because I wanted to spend time together with him, which is one of the reasons why I started going with him and watching him fly. And that really helped. Just because I could sit around and journal or do what I wanted and watch his flights through the goggles and have fun with his friends. But then it kind of got to where I was bored watching everyone else have fun. And that's eventually what led me into wanting to learn how to fly mini quads, especially because I loved going out and hanging out with the guys and being outside, but I wanted to be fun like them as well. So it was really encouraging to already have that group of friends who wanted to help me fly as well. But once I started flying and having fun, it really just kind of kickstarted our momentum into being into this hobby together. But really, it was just compromise. I would talk to him about the things that I didn't like, and he would try to work on them, try to spend some time that he would really rather be researching drone stuff. So out to dinner, or we could go, for a hike or do something that I like to do. And I think that's really important. I was giving him the time that he needs to fly, and he was also giving me the time that I needed to do the things that we would normally be doing together.
And that right there to me is the real thing. There is the fact that you brought it to his attention, and he acknowledged the fact that, yes, I don't want to lose an important part of me. You know what I mean? And so I must rethink or refocus. I mean, it happens to me. I mean, I've been married 20. Oh man.
You better not forget that number. You're going to be in trouble if you forget the number.
28 years. I've been married for 28 years, almost 29 soon, and it's like my wife comes in sometimes and she says, "Look, I want to go to dinner. You're going to take me to dinner. We're going to go. You're not going flying. You're, you know, you're going to dress like you know where you're going. You know, and, you know, no t-shirts, no quad this, no Emax t-shirt, no drone nationals, none of that stuff. You're not wearing none of that. You're going to put on a nice shirt and a nice tie and put on some slacks and take them loafers out and put them on, and we're going to go to dinner. And you're going to spend the day with me." And when she says that, you know, it's like, you know what? I don't want to be by myself.
Yep.
I don't want to be by myself. And so over the last 28 years, I've gone through changes. You know, like I started off with, you know, a family and a wife and kids. And we started back in the 90s. When we started our family, I got involved in helicopters, you know, and I got really deep into it. You know, I was working for a good place, making good money, and I was capable of spending, helicopters. You have these $500-$600 crashes, you see, and you have to make good money to do those things and to fix them at the time. At the time, it wasn't like that. So, but she didn't have a problem with the money. See, that's how she got me, was that she didn't care about the money. She was like, if as long as the bills are paid, I'm good. You just go out and have fun and enjoy your time and relax after work. So my wife was just a regular wife, a housewife, and a mother, and more of my helper with the household. You know what I mean? And I would go to work and I would, you know, come home. She knew my job was very stressful, so she would give me an hour of time, 2 hours after work to focus in so I could narrow back into the family, right? And that helped me for a long time to be able to juggle both the family and the household. And like I said, she'll stop and she'll say, okay, this, you know, we haven't spent enough time together. You know, we need to spend some time together. Oh, me, you, and the kids, we need to spend some time together. Like, you know, come watch a movie with us. You know what I mean? Those things. And the way she puts it is the things that she doesn't come at me like, bang, 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 bang. You know, she just is that being reasonable, you know. And I guess it has something to do with the fact that, like I said, I'm open to the whole thought process, right? You know what I mean? I realize that my wife is my wife and my partner and my friend, and will have my back till the day I die, you know. So when she brings something up, you know, the light comes on, and I know that, you know, this is one of those pivotal points, you know, in my life. I can be stupid, I can be smart, you know. Stupid means, you know, 6 months later, you might get a letter in the mail that you don't want to sign. You know what I mean? And all your stuff is gone, you know. Or you can do these things and continue to move on and forward in your life and continue a relationship, because relationships are hard, just like businesses and doing podcasts with friends. You know, these things are hard, and they're just challenges that we have to overcome to be the people that we need to be. And I think it's great that the fact that you guys are doing that in this business when so many others, and I mean like 6 people I know are now single. Like had wife last year, had wife. You know, we show up at a race this year and I'm like, so, hey, how you doing? Well, man, well, how's the wife? What? say, what? Took all your, what? Divorced, the kids gone too, what? House go, what? What happened? FPV. No. Dude, that's wrong. You know, like, you got to focus on what's important. And, you know, it's a hobby for many of us. And we want to be pilots, want to be race pilots. But listen, for the most of us, be the dad, be the parent, be the husband, be the loved one. You know, that's very important too. You know, don't forget your family.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think in order for this to succeed, in order for one or both of you to be so drawn into your hobby that sometimes things in life lacks, you have to be open to it. You both have to be open. You know, the wife has to be open to the fact that this is something that your husband loves to do, that it's what brings him joy, and it's what really makes him happy and relax. And then he has to also understand that there's things that are not FPV like the rest of us. So there's the real world out there. And I feel like when these things fail, it's because one or both of them are refusing to be open. And a lot of times they just maybe they don't want to be open. They don't want to do what it takes to make it work, because it is work. You don't just jump into a relationship and things just happen and then you're all happy and you spend the rest of your life together. You have to figure out what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy, and then talk about it and change it. And I think that if you were to ask a guy why he got a divorce and he's blaming it on FPV, there's underlying issues there as well.
Right. I'm
because
sure.
you're not being open, you know, with yourself and with your wife.
Or he chose FPV. I mean, that's the thing is, like, you know, Elvin mentioned, you know, having one of those pivotal moments where I can do this or that. I mean, I remember in my own mind, you know, a particular time where I was like, I have two paths in front of me I can take. And one is with her and one was without her. Right. And I didn't want the one that was without her. So I made the decisions I had to make in order to follow the path I wanted to go on. Now, you know, maybe if you fail to see that choice, because, you know, it's you can get so wrapped up into it that you don't even see the fork in the road. You just pass it by. But thankfully, you know, she hit me on the head and said, "Hey, idiot, you know, I'm over here." And, so we did.
I mean, life is hard without being, you know, challenging in that aspect as well. So I think that if it makes you happy, then you both work at doing that as much as possible, and that's important.
Right.
Definitely.
Just, you know, remember, I like to tell people, you know, remember there was a time when you couldn't live without her. You know, or you couldn't live without him. You know, you would have flew 5 million miles to be, you know, 30 seconds in the room with him and do it again the next morning. You know, so if you just got to remember that's what it is when you're in a relationship, is the fact that, you know, you got to constantly remind yourself that this is the person that I decided that I wanted to be with. You know, I decided, and in your case, in my case, you know, we took the vows, you know, so, you know, we made statements to our friends and family that, you know, we wanted to do this and that we wanted to go down this path. And, you know, to me, there's never been an option for the other, you know what I mean, where me and my wife hasn't been together. So, and we talk about that today with other parents and other couples about how we never think about being separate. Like, you know, it's never been an option. There was a time where we were doing something and trying to get some help, and someone said, you know, if you guys do this for like a week, we can do a lot for you. And we absolutely refused. Like, no, you know, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? This is family. You know what I mean? There's no two routes down the road. So, I mean, for us, we see that, and it's kept our family together. And I love to see other couples that have that whole thought process, because, you know, it's lonely to be here at 28 years by myself. You know what I mean? Like, most of my friends, they don't know what that's like. They don't know what to be in a relationship for that long, and it's an accomplishment, just that in itself.
Definitely. It's one of those things where it's a lot of work. And hey, congratulations on 28 years. How long have you two been together, the Victory family?
You tell him, Jeff.
Uh-oh. Does he remember? Dun, dun, dun.
Uh-oh.
Well, we were married in 2000. We got married in 2009, so that'd be 8 years.
Okay, working on double digits pretty soon.
Yeah. So, and then I don't know, it was a handful of years before that.
Yeah.
So y'all have been together a lot longer than the time y'all been married, though.
Yeah, we've been together about 12 years.
12 years. Hey, remember that number, because if she remembers, you better remember. That's how I know. That's how it works. Okay, so I got a question for you, Jeff, real quick. Get us back on track. Now, when she decided she wanted to start flying, what advice would you give other guys to kind of encourage the opposite, to actually want to do it? Because it's actually very intimidating, right? I talk to a lot of people, and to come into a group of people who are already skilled at something and you are at the bottom level trying to come up, it's a very intimidating thing to do. So what advice would you give to those people?
I would say probably the same thing. I kind of do this on a daily basis at the hobby shop anyway, just not necessarily with women or people's spouses, but it would be the same thing, I think, is, that I just share the excitement, share the fun, share the, like the feeling. I mean, we all know that feeling of freedom or weightlessness or whatever it is that just gets you going and really makes you love it. And to me, that's what I share, and that's what's infectious about it. And also the social aspect. I mean, she even said that herself, that, getting to know other of my FPV friends and stuff is part of the draw. And then, as far as like the skill level goes, we're all at different levels. Even our local club, we got guys that are still, bobbling around in angle mode, and some guys that are, going to Nats every year, so, but we're all having fun. And as long as we can all have fun together, then it's like I say on Facebook, we all know the crazy, weird drama and stuff that happens on Facebook. And I'm like, as long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. Because people say, well, what's the best VTX, or what's the best motor, or what's the best this or that? It's like whichever one gets you in the air and gets you a good time, So, and just kind of keeping that attitude about it. And I find that helps pull people in and make people feel comfortable more than anything. And then, of course, as far as the technical hurdles, just being willing to help, just answer questions and do what you can, share experiences, because we all know what a headache it can be, and that's the thing too. It's like, don't forget to have fun, because you're out in the field and you're working on your quad and you just want to get in the air and you're getting frustrated. And, at some point it's like, well, just put it down, or, whatever you got to do to just
keep your
sanity. Yeah, take a break, man. If you're not having fun, just put it down. So.
I saw a guy in the field got a little upset. He ripped his shirt off. He's like, I was like, hey, calm down now. Calm down there, homie. You don't have to go to that extent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's go get another shirt and let's sit down. We'll work on it. It's simple as that. But it's people tend to forget, and it is a struggle. And like he was saying earlier, one of the things about multi-rotors or flying quads or drones, it's not just learning one thing. You know what I mean? Like you have to learn how to solder. You have to learn like how to program your radio. You have to learn how to flash your ship. So, you become like a little baby technical nerd. You know what I mean? You learn all kinds of little aspects. This is what I love about it, though. You learn all kinds of, so like no one that has a quad doesn't have a computer, right? It's like, I don't know anybody like that just doesn't have a computer, a tablet or something that connects to it to do the flashing, the programming, or whatever is setting up and stuff like that. So there's just it expands your mind as you get involved in this hobby.
Well, definitely. I want to add too that for someone getting into it who you want to get them interested, the biggest thing I had to keep in mind was don't be afraid to crash. It's going to happen. And when it does, the quad can be fixed.
The quad can be fixed, or it could be repaired with better and shinier things.
Yeah, definitely. Because for me, it was, oh gosh, what if I crash? And I did so many times. But if you just keep doing it, you're going to get better, and it's going to be fun. You just have to get through that learning hurdle.
So the learning hurdle for you, what was it like? Did you kind of do the progression of like going from, angle to horizon to acro? Is that kind of the progression, or like did you start off with like the tiny whip stuff, or did you start off with the sims, or how did you learn to fly?
It was kind of a combination of the sim and the tiny whip. I had already flown the Phantom, so I was familiar with the controls of how a quadcopter will fly. I did the sim a little bit, and of course it's not really like the real thing. So once I got into the Inductrix, it was pretty much just learning how to fly that. When it came to my mini quad, I flew it in acro mode. Jeff didn't give me the option of flying any other way.
Hard mode. What? No, easy mode. What's that? That button got button got torn off.
Well, she already knew how to fly the whoop. And I saw her fly in the sim, and I was like, I've helped enough people learn to fly at this point. Every single person that I help at the shop, I encourage them. I say, get out of angle mode as soon as possible. Right. And every single one of them, the day they learn to fly acro, they come back in with a smile on their face, and they're like, dude, I'm flying acro now. So I was like, I want you to start out right because I know you can do it. And within a day, she was doing it.
Well, and the other thing was I started flying the mini quad line of sight, and I didn't like it. And then I was just afraid to put on my goggles because I wasn't very familiar with the controls. But as soon as I did, it was like no turning back. And I've encouraged several people when they're like, oh, I'm just learning line of sight. Please put on goggles because it's so much fun. You learn it so much quicker when you do it that way.
That's exactly what I've been telling a few guys. Like, that's the same thing for wings. Like, these guys buy these wings and then they go out and they put a camera on it and they toss it in the air, and usually it crashes the first couple of times, right? And what we have experienced from multi-rotors is, if you take off and you climb up to 100 feet and you drive it into the ground, your camera's not going to work all the time after that, and with a wing, there's no structural, integrity around the camera. You know what I mean? So usually at that time, the camera meets the ground first, and it's over. So, but there's that. If you can get someone to like test, like I most of the guys around here that I fly with, I've flown their wings, right? Like I just toss them in the air and fly around. And then at that moment, I'm like, okay, it's good. Put a camera on it and go fly it. And then next weekend they come back, no camera, you're scared. And I'm like, dude, like you're holding yourself back. You are, it's not like, they can line of sight fly, and they're fine with it, but they just, like, they damage that one camera, and after that, it's like, no. But it's you just got to let go.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of another point, like talking about line of sight versus FPV. I was traditionally a line of sight pilot, like a lot of us, and when I got into quads, I thought, well, I'll learn line of sight. And I had this sort of warp quad frame and, had the different color props and stuff on it so I could see orientation, and did that for a while and really had fun with it. So I don't say I shouldn't have done that or anything. But what I found was that at the time when I wanted to go FPV, I was trying to do it on the cheap. So I took my line of sight quad, put some 35 mil standoffs over the flight stack, dropped a camera and VTX on there, and there we go. Mm-hmm. And my first flight, I realized really quickly how much flying line of sight did not help me with FPV.
That's the thing that blew my mind. That was like, it was like, I've been flying line of sight for long. I've competed in competitions, you know, like I was like the guy for a long time when quads first came out here. The two hobby shops would hire me to come out and fly demos, right? You know, at all the fun flies and stuff like that. And I would have a blast, but then I got like my FPV gear and put it on a quad, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much different. You know what I mean? Like flying along, like, okay, so like I thought it was smooth, but it's not. It's like, holy crap, I'm like bouncing everywhere. Like, what the hell is that? Hey, dude, how you stop that? You know, right. That blew my mind.
Whole new level of tuning once you've got your head in that little camera.
Right. It's like, what? I thought it looked good. It looked good, you know.
Right.
Couldn't figure out why it was so bouncy when I was running the GoPro on the front of my Discovery, you know, like doing line of sight, you know, because that's how I started is, you know, flying my Discovery around the neighborhood and climbing up, you know, because I didn't have a Phantom, you know, that was a little outside of my budget, you know, so I built my own ship, you know, and I took it up to 200 feet, and I would fly around and steal and do the same Phantom flight, basically, like you would do normally with a Phantom or an Inspire. You know, I would take up and go as slow as possible and smooth, and trying to get rid of jello and while I'm flying and put them goggles on. With what the hell is this shit? Bouncing everywhere. Like, no wonder why it didn't work, you know. And then started to learn how to tune from inside the ship, and things got way better, right?
Right.
There's a whole world of learning experiences what you put on the goggles, but it's a leap of faith, right? You lose all of that perspective, and you can only focus in on one thing, which is very difficult sometimes. But it's like anything. Once you jump, you know, you'll learn it quickly. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't learn it very quickly after they try it. You might go through a few propellers, you might go through an arm or two, but it's okay. That's normal.
Go through a frame or two, you know what I mean? Now today, you know, we have. I'll say this: the technology has moved so far ahead in the designs of most of the ships, and I'm not talking about like the skinny arm ones. You know, I'm talking about like the ones that are still, you know, 17, 18 millimeter wide blade, flat bottom, you know, arms, and going to 4 and 5 millimeters now. Those are pretty much like I flew my friend's ship through a tree like the other day, you know, like through a tree. I mean, I like doing it and it's fun, but I flew it through the tree, you know, and it came out the other side of the tree and bounced off the ground. We picked it up and we went flying again, right? And I remember back in the day, like if I got close to the tree and tapped the tree, my arm was broke. The motor, I pulled the wire out of the motor, and there's garbage, and you know, it's a whole nother starting process, right? So things have gotten to be more durable and more crash worthy. That's the word, right? That's the proper word. More crash worthy. And I can say, so I've seen more quads today survive some crashes that they wouldn't have survived years ago. You know what I mean? Because of the design, because of the arm thickness or whatever, or the way the ship was designed. Like I remember when guys actually made top plates that were 1 millimeter, like.
Yeah.
Well, back then nobody understood that. You know, thicker is better. It's just
well,
live
we're
and
trying
learn.
to save weight, but if every time I crash, I snap the top plate and crack my flight controller, we're not saving nothing.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah,
True enough.
But yeah, I think that's where I was going.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start wrapping up because we don't want to keep you guys too long. So, like the final few questions.
It's almost the last day of the year. It is almost.
It's almost New Year's. Yes, it is. So I want to just quickly wrap up with like suggestions on people getting into the hobby, since obviously you guys own hobby stores. It'd be nice to, get your take on what you think is best for somebody who's coming in, like some part selection, maybe a ready to fly if you have one, both your perspectives. Maybe it's different, maybe it's the same, but all right, Jeff, I'll start with you first.
Okay. I guess as far as where to start, you kind of need to evaluate your own skills, what you're currently capable of, what you may or may not feel like you can learn quickly, as opposed, in terms of like whether you want to go bond and fly or build your own sort of things like that. I'm sometimes surprised at how many people, despite not knowing how to solder, not really knowing, maybe being scared of the GUIs and whatnot, are like, I want to build it regardless. I don't know any of that stuff, but you know what? I want to learn it. I want to build it. I kind of expected with the hobby shop, we might sell more bond and flies than we do. But, so many people are like, no, I want to build it. And I like seeing that. But that's something you have to decide for yourself and go, well, some people go, well, I want the bond and fly. And then as I break it, I'll learn in kind of more incremental steps. And some people like myself, I said, I'm going to build it. I'm just going to jump in with both feet and we're going to figure this thing out. So, yeah, I guess, evaluate that, figure out what you want to do. And, the budget thing is always, there. So, I won't get into the whole clone debate, but, do what you got to do to make things work. But I always tell people, don't cheap out on flight controllers. Don't cheap out on ESCs. You want cheap motors, cheap carbon, that's cool. But those, man, in my experience, those are two things that just aren't worth getting the $10 parts, because you will chase your tail for days and it winds up being a cheap Chinese piece of junk flight controller, and
It's
you don't learn.
Yeah,
like you don't learn quickly that way.
Yeah.
As if you're using a little bit better quality components that are a little more reliable, you in my experience anyway, I feel like you run into that a little bit less. So, but with cheaper carbon, cheaper motors, stuff like that, hey, all day long. If I kind of wish I would have had a little bit cheaper options when I first started. I got a box full of broken parts that I keep to show people. Like, we were talking earlier about not being afraid to crash, and I see that a lot at the shop. And I've got this box. It's, mostly props, but there's flight controllers, ESCs, motors, just destroyed stuff everywhere. And I'll pull it out and say, this is what it takes, like this is, you're going to have your own box. And but on the other side, it's fantastic because, for me, like one of my motivations was watching YouTube, and you can tell when somebody's heart is in it. You see someone's video and it just speaks to you, and you're like, that person is one with that machine and they're in what I call a flow state. Like you're completely involved and you're just completely and utterly focused, and you're just, for me, like when I really get into the flow of freestyle flying, I feel as much like I'm dancing as it is I'm flying, So, and it's that motivation, that desire to feel that freedom, and just tell them to keep their eye on the ball, I guess.
Keep their eye on the ball. There you go.
What does Casey say?
Well, when I first got into it, it was because I wanted to fly, not so much build it. So I would probably suggest to someone like me to get a bind and fly, of course, because I had to experience the fun of flying it before I really became interested in what it took to keep my quad in the air. it really depends on what you want to fly as well. I love flying the Tiny Whoop, but I don't feel like it really is like flying a mini quad, and I love that even more. So they're all kind of different grades of flying, different styles of flying. It just really depends on what you're interested in. If you want something you can fly inside and in really small places, then a Tiny Whoop is going to be a really great option. Plus, you could crash it into a whole lot of things and not really do much damage.
No.
And I mean, and the same with my mini quad. It's hit the ground hard so many times, and it's still going. So it really is important to get something that is good quality that can take a beating, because you're going to beat it up.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. You got anything you want to add to that? I know you do.
I just think, there's enough stuff out there right now. Go to your local hobby shop, get some advice, what is working best in your area. I mean, there's going to be some guys that are going to tell you, we love this and we've been using this for years, or 6 months or 3 months. And that's all we use. And all I can say is learn to fly your stuff and fly and fly and fly and practice. That's all I can tell you.
All right.
Yep.
You do that, the better you'll get.
So
Yep.
I'll wrap it up with what I would say is, if you don't like to build, thanks, Elvin. If you don't like to build, there is actually some really good bind and fly options nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
When we first started, and there were a lot of bind and flies that were very brittle. I mean, like, they just didn't last a crash. But nowadays, there's a bunch of people that will build you something that will last a long time. And if you have problems, if you buy from a reputable local store or somebody that they'll still be happy to help you after the crash, because they know you'll crash. They know that. And they'll be happy to help you out, and you can learn through that way. So, but I would stay away from a lot of the Banggood bind and flies. They're cheap. I've helped a lot of people through it, and they do not last. There's a lot of YouTube videos that say they will last. It's actually luck of the draw, because I've gone from like gnarly crashes that I thought for sure I'd split the frame in two. Came down, it's like, there's not a scratch on this thing. I did a little bump. It's like, oh, that was a little bump, and the thing is ruined. I was like, how does that work? It's just like,
Yep.
it's like that was just a little ding. It was like, and it's gone. Okay, so buy something that you can say, like, you can go up to a buddy that has been flying a long time. You don't look like an idiot. That's home. Don't buy Banggood.
Wait. I like the fact that you can buy parts. Whatever you buy, if you can't buy parts for it, don't buy it.
There we go. That is true.
That's a rule that has always been. If it's a toy, you'll find it at the store with no parts around it. If it's part of the hobby, you will find parts for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pay attention to that one thing, it'll stop you from spending $35 on something and going to spend $70 and getting parts and being able to fix it.
Right.
Yep.
It's toy grade versus hobby grade.
Yep. Last bit of advice: don't buy something with a radio that it doesn't say Spectrum or FR Sky or Free Sky, because nobody's going to know how to help you if you have problems with that radio. It's either Spectrum or Free Sky. Anything else? Well, actually, I take that back. If you want to go into some of the higher end radios, like some really high end radios, you're fine there, but you're going to be paying a lot of money. So,
like Jetty or JR and stuff. But yeah.
So, but stick with those brands. They both have cheap models nowadays, so it's not that bad, really.
Yeah, they all have a $190 radio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or $100 radio if the QX7.
The QX7 is not a bad radio.
It's a good radio for the price. So that's our advice. Happy holidays. Have a good New Year's, because this one should come out before the New Year's. That's what I'm trying to do, anyways. Should come out actually Saturday, so it should be tomorrow. So, Victory Family. Sorry, I kind of lost it right there. Starting, Casey. Casey, what social media accounts would you like to share if people want to get a hold of you?
I'm on Facebook under Casey Victory.
Okay. Anything else? Just that? That's it. All right. What about you, Jeff? What do you got? It's got like a kajillion things, I can tell.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, Facebook, obviously. Again, I'm just Jeff Victory. I'm Quad Logic on YouTube. Vivid Aerial also on Facebook. On Instagram. Yeah, we don't do Twitter or anything, so those would be our things. But yeah.
So everything at Vivid.
Everything at Vivid Audio. Yeah. So if you're near Nashville, check them out. Buy local.
That video of Brian Brock in his truck going through the water in the back of stuff. That's badass. Yeah, that looks badass.
We do plan on having a website coming up pretty soon. That's one thing we get a lot of questions, especially in the online community, obviously, is like, where's your website? Well, we're just brick and mortar at this point. So that's just FYI. Well, but hopefully we'll have one coming. We'll share that all around social media when that happens.
All right. Sounds good. Websites can be a pain.
Y'all got some great pilots in Nashville, I'll say. Hey, guys, we gave you a shout out.
Yeah.
Pilots, Tennessee. Yo, what's up?
Yeah.
Jeff.
Covered State, the Chief, all those guys.
Oh, you guys are funny.
So.
Okay.
Happy New Year's, girls. I mean, boys.
Happy New Year's. Hopefully you'll stick with your New Year's resolution. Next time I see Elvan, I'm just gonna throw like fried chicken, French fries. He's gonna be gaining weight. It's a mission now. It's a mission now. No, Elvan, I won't do that. I promise I won't.
Wings is protein.
I won't do that to you. I can torture you by throwing you just all green food. You'll be crying by the time you get home and be like,
I'll roast salad.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us before the New Year.
Yep. Yeah, Happy New Year, guys.
Yep, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Thanks for having us on here. It's been great.
Are we done recording?
I am about to shut it off.